You and I, yes, and the people listening, yes, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, we do deserve better, but we also must demand better, right? So I feel like, we have abdicated our power to the ruling class. We've allowed for them to divide us by race, by creed, by any means necessary. We've allowed ourselves to otherize other people to buy into a system because it gives us just a little bit more benefit. Well, at least it's not me, and I can always move out of harm's way, right? Those who can. So I'm ask you, because this, I think we're at a really serious come to Jesus moment in our nation's history, and I'm using that on purpose. How do we hold this system accountable? How do we force, because if anything, I have listeners who believe the Democrats are just like the Republicans. I don't believe that. I don't get into partisan politics. I think we're dealing with power. So I believe anybody in power wants to stay in power. Before you came on, someone said, well, what about Gavin Newsom running against Joe Biden? Gavin Newsom actually wants to be president. He could not be president if he primaries Joe Biden. There's too much at stake. So he's going to get in line, because the power is more important than actually running for something that matters. What are your thoughts on that? What will it take for these people, the Trumps, the folk in Congress who now have the power, the people who fomented this insurrection now have even more power than they had 2 years ago? How do we hold them accountable?
Yeah, I mean, it typically all falls to the vote. But when our votes are not respected, well, then voting alone is not necessarily enough. Trump and his criminal cabal, right? That whole command structure of the insurrection did their damnedest to try to take our vote away from us and install a president unconstitutionally for a second term. If the vote is not enough, I hate to think, what is the next step beyond, I will say, Karen, I have had in the back of my head for years now, the line from the Beatles song, "You say you want a revolution?" And I don't advocate violence as a political tool, but here's the thing. If our vote alone is not enough because it's not going to be respected, well, then somebody please tell me, what is the next step beyond that? I think fundamentally, the one thing that we have to see, if we have any hope of moving forward, is accountability for the folk who just committed, big ticket crimes against we the people in violation of the laws of the United States. When you commit a federal crime, you're committing a crime against the people of the United States. I have some hope, and I hope this is not naive, that, we finally may have landed on a true justice warrior in this special counsel that came back from The Hague. Let me tell you, Karen, I served with a lot of federal prosecutors. I supervised a lot of federal prosecutors, and a lot of federal prosecutors supervised me, which was not easy because I was a management challenge. Because when they told me you can't bring that case, I said, in my actions, well, you can go ahead and demote or fire me, because I think this case needs to be brought, because we have victims and communities out there who deserve to have their day in court and their chance at moving in the direction of healing. I usually won that battle, but I didn't always win the case that I brought, which I'm okay with. And this brings me back to Jack Smith. Jack Smith has brought cases against not only war criminals. When he was the head of the public integrity section, the PIN, at the Department of Justice, he brought cases against Republicans. He brought cases against Democrats. He brought cases against CIA officers, left, right, center. It didn't matter. And here's what I love about Jack Smith's resume. He lost some of those cases, but it didn't matter, because it was so important to bring them and to try to bring criminal politicians to justice that he said, no, I'm not only going to bring the sure thing. Let me tell you, federal prosecutors will run around pounding their chest. I never lost a case. That's because you never tried a difficult case. Jack Smith is not afraid to bring difficult, politically charged cases. And when he left the Department of Justice, he didn't go to some cushy law firm to earn the big bucks. I never spent one day of my life in a law firm, and I never will. I will put roofs on houses. I will work on commercial fishing boats. That's where I come from as a gutter kid from Jersey. But I will not go to a law firm and try to chase the almighty dollar, which is why I'm sitting here in my little homemade office fighting for justice as best I can from the outside after 30 plus years as a Fed. Jack Smith didn't go out to make he went to The Hague to get after war criminals. What does that tell you about where his heart is and just how determined he is to bring really bad folk to justice? I hope I'm not miscalculating that.
No, so why is Jared Kushner still walking around, not prosecuted? No, we know he took money from the Saudis. We know this. Where did Trump get his money after going bankrupt 6 times? But yet he was able to not just run for president, be president with compromised interest. I'm not even talking about January 6th. I almost said 9/11, but it's all the same. I'm not even talking about January 6th. Like, no investigation into where his money comes from. Letitia James has, done some things in New York, to follow the money. But you're right. So if it doesn't happen, first of all, how do we make it happen? Because I don't want to have a circular conversation and frustration about what people aren't doing. We, the people, have to make it happen. How do we make it happen?
It's a question with no good answer. Beyond the vote, which is ordinarily how we get to have a say in our government and what happens, but we have seen that has not worked out so good for us. Here's what I will say. First of all, I tell people, just because Trump hasn't been indicted yet does not mean he won't be indicted. I don't think for a minute. District Attorney Fani Willis down there in Fulton County went through all the work of getting authorization to impanel a special grand jury. She dragged 75 witnesses in there by the scruff of their neck, weak little boys like Lindsey Graham and Mike Flynn and Rudy Giuliani, who went running to the court looking for the judges to protect them. Don't make me testify about Donald Trump's crimes. I don't want to. Little Lindsey ran all the way up to the Supreme Court. And even the Supreme Court said, shut up and go testify. And they did. 75 witnesses Fani Willis put before that grand jury, and not a one of them wanted to testify. Then she got a report out of that special grand jury. And God bless Emily Kors. People can say, well, she's quirky in the way she communicated, and maybe she shouldn't have talked all about what was going on in the grand jury. Most importantly, Judge McBurney vouched for her and said, no, she did exactly what she was entitled to do under the rules and under the laws of Georgia. So I don't want to hear the Trump lackeys pulling out the fainting couch because, oh my God, a grand juror talked. She was permitted to talk. And what did she tell us? Among other things, read between the lines. When she was asked, did you recommend Trump be indicted? She said, we focused on that phone call, find me 11,780 votes, and there will be no surprises. Nobody's going to be shocked. And so on top of that, she said, and more than a dozen people we recommended to be indicted. Do you really think Fani Willis went through all that work and all that trouble to get that report only to say, never mind, I'm not indicting anybody?